This is the story of Cinderella. And you see that the front and the back cover make the full picture. You see the horses with the carriage. Just like the juice pouch. Yep, because sometimes CI, when you have a C and an I together, then that makes the S sound. So we don't call her Kinderella, we call her Cinderella. Just like in December, CE makes the S sound, CI also makes the S sound. That's a good question, sweetheart. Cinderella. Yeah. Okay, Mila, let's put your hands down because we got to read this. Otherwise, we won't have time to read. Once upon a time, there lived an unhappy young girl. Her mother had died, and her father had married a widow with 2 daughters. Her stepmother spoiled her own daughters. Nothing was too good for them. Dresses, shoes, parties, whatever they wanted, they got. Does Cinderella get any of those things? No. Nope. That is rude. You're right. But for the poor, unhappy girl, there was nothing at all. Her dresses were her stepsister's hand-me-downs. Her dinner was nothing but scraps. And her day was filled with hard work. Only when evening for just a little the embers person. Right, and one day, beautiful new dresses arrived at the house. A ball was to be held at the palace, and the stepsisters were invited. Cinderella didn't even ask if she could go too. She knew very well that the answer would be no. Instead, Cinderella began her chores. She washed the dishes, scrubbed the floors, and made the beds. How does her face look? Yeah, she's sad and disappointed because she knows she can't go to the ball either. But the fairy godmother is going to come. You got it. Suddenly, when Cinderella was all alone, appeared. Cinderella said the fairy, and so people. Wand. Cinderella found herself wearing the most beautiful dress she had ever seen, and Cinderella was speechless. Cinderella in the movie too, you're right, sweetheart. I forgot about that. Now for your coach, said the fairy godmother. Bring me a pumpkin. And the fairy godmother turned to the cat. Bring me 7 mice. Ooh, how many mice did she have in the other story? 6. So here, there, it's different. Cinderella soon returned with the pumpkin and the cat with the 7 mice. She's got the 7 tails hanging out of her mouth. The cat down here. With a flick of her magic wand, the fairy godmother turned the pumpkin into a sparkling coach, a carriage. Next, she turned the mice into 6 white horses and a coachman. Cinderella could hardly believe her eyes. So one of the mice turned into the driver. In our other story, the rat turned into the driver. So here that's a little bit different. It says, there was one condition, said the fairy godmother. The magic will wear off at the last stroke of midnight. So you must be home by then. I will. Thank you, fairy godmother, said Cinderella, beaming. When the clock hits 12, you got it, Chelsea, at midnight, 12 o'clock, she needs to be home. Otherwise, the magic wears off and everything turns back.
A little bit different.
You're right.
And the other one, he was black skinned, but I watched the movie, he was white skinned.
Yep, because the stories about the princesses are just made up. They're just stories. They're not real. So everybody makes their story look different. That's why all these books are different. It says Cinderella had a wonderful time at the ball, dancing with the prince himself. And then when she heard the first stroke of midnight, without a word goodbye, she slipped from the prince's arms and ran down the steps because she remembered, uh-oh, if I stay here, my beautiful dress is going to turn back into rags. And then everyone at the party is going to see, and my pumpkin or my coach will turn back into a pumpkin, and the horses will turn back into mice. So she quickly ran away. As she ran, she lost one of her slippers. Still away she fled, vanishing into the night. She didn't go back for it. The prince was now in love with her, and he picked up the slipper and said to his ministers, "Search everywhere for the girl whose foot this slipper fits. I will never be happy until I find her." Remember what the other story told us? The prince doesn't even know her name, so he doesn't know. Oh, I can just go find Cinderella at her house. That's why he needs to take the shoe and take that everywhere to find who it fits, because he doesn't even know her name. The ministers tried the slipper on the foot of every girl in the land until only Cinderella was left. And that awful, untidy girl simply cannot have been at the ball, snapped her stepmother. The prince ought to marry one of my 2 daughters. But to everyone's astonishment, the perfectly. Oh, she's being mean. You see her little face? That can't fit on her foot. She was not there. Yes, I know. We're going to eat in just a little bit. My tummy's growling too. All right, let's finish. This is almost done. Then we get to eat. It says the fairy godmother appeared and waved her magic wand, and in a flash, Cinderella was transformed. In an elegant dress, Cinderella shone with youth and beauty, and her stepmothers and stepsisters stared in amazement. Look at their faces. They're like, the ministers had found the prince's true love at last, and Cinderella and the prince married the very next day, and they lived happily ever after. I don't know. Now, in the last story, what did Cinderella do with her stepmother and stepsisters? Do you remember? Well, no, what did she do in the last story? Yeah, raise your hand. What, honey? They came with her to the... They came with her to the castle. Is she taking them with this time in this story? No. I don't think I would have brought them with me either. Yes, she did. She married the prince. The end, my sweets.
Now, when the fairy godmother transformed, the dress can last longer.
Yep, now the dress, because the fairy... Ryan, honey. Now that the fairy transformed her here back into that beautiful dress, now the dress will always stay. Yeah, it's not going to go away like it did before at midnight. My loves, I know you're hungry. I'm hungry too. Mitchell, we'll see you later for math. Okay, my sweet? Bye, hon. All right, let's fold our hands to